Every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. Today, I get to sit with someone I deeply admire. George Gellert from Gellert Global is 87 years old. He's the chairman of a $1.7 billion food company that most people have never heard of, and that is by design. He grew up on a farm. He spent 60 years building a real, unbelievable company through loss, setbacks, through seasons where nobody was watching. His story is everything this podcast is about. Success doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a lifetime. And George Gellert is living proof. So George, welcome to the John Schultz podcast. I've been waiting for this one for a very long time. I'm so happy you are here today, and welcome.
Pleasure to be here, John.
Good. It's going to be an exciting one. It's a good one. So, this is all about the myth of overnight success. And boy, if I could pick a picture of someone for what my podcast theme was, it's you. That's why I'm so excited to have you here. Plus, I've just known you for so long. You're such a good person. But we start way back when someone's really young in their early years, because I feel so many, I guess, of what we are what we are become, when we were younger. So my first question to you is, what do you remember most about growing up in upstate New York, and what kind of lessons did you learn from that childhood in your early days?
Well, I started family originally was in Long Island, and then we moved upstate when I was 13. But even when I was young in Long Island, at 8 years old, I was selling newspapers. There was a daily paper that came out once a week, and I'd go to the train station and I'd be selling the newspapers. And then I went on, my school, they always had a contest who would sell the most magazines. And I was always very aggressive as a youngster. And one early story that I remembered, there was a track competition, and it was you entered by age and weight. And since my birthday was April, I had the people who I competed were actually a year older, because they were born a year in November, for example. So I was 12 years old. I lived in Nassau County, but I took a bus to Queens County, took a train to St. George's in Brooklyn. It was a swimming sauna place. And I took a sauna. I was 12 years old. I took a sauna to lose enough weight that I would get in the lower category. And it helped because I didn't have to race against the next year class. And I remember that quite a bit. And then when I was 13, we moved upstate, and a town called Hillsdale, where Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York come. And we had an egg farm. We had over 100,000 chickens. And playing high school sports, I would have to get up in the morning, take care of the chickens. I milked 3 cows. We had 3 cows in our family. And then I'd go to school. And then after school, we'd have our football practice. I played 4 sports. And then I'd come home, I'd have to do my chores and finally go to bed. So it was a very aggressive, hardworking childhood, even in high school. One summer job I had.
But what made that, it's so interesting. I don't mean to interrupt here, but I just want to play on this one angle here. First of all, in today's day and age, letting a 12-year-old go and do what you did, I don't think would ever happen again for the rest of eternity. But what pushed you for that? Was it just something you saw that your parents did? Like what gave you this drive? Like there must have been something that pushed you like this.
Well, I'm pleased to say that all my brothers drive pretty hard. Sometimes the family, one does, but I don't know what it was, John. But my brother got a job during the summer working on a dairy farm. He was getting 25 cents an hour. We had an egg delivery route that my mother was doing. It was before we could drive. And I said to somebody at this camp, I said, can I get a job as a busboy? So they gave me a job. My brother's making 25 cents an hour, and I was making $10 a day, as a busboy. And so he actually left the farm and came to work at the camp. So it was just growing up. We always worked pretty hard.
Was it just work ethic because you're living on a farm and you're seeing it happen every day? Because it's unbelievable. I know I worked at a young age, but I didn't even think about it until I was 15, 16 years old. And, I did what I did. I guess I did certain things. I had a little paper route too, but it's amazing.
And then,
It's from the get-go, you were the
John,
Energizer bunny that we know you are today still.
when we went to Cornell, my older brother was 2 years older than myself. He started a business. We went to a professor who made nameplates. In fact, I have one here. I could show it to you. And we would go to all the students, and we start selling these nameplates. And see, and then we kept on thinking of other jobs we can have at Cornell. We sent letters to all the parents that if they wanted to buy a birthday cake, we would sell and send birthday cakes to the kids. And then we had this. Since I played football, this only happened after I graduated because I stayed for Cornell for three more years in law degree. We had all the pennant concessions at the football games. We were selling the pennants and all those things. And then we had stationery, which we sold to the students. We worked for a company called Global Stationery. You have your own stationery with your name on it. Actually, when I graduated Cornell, I took a pay cut. I was making more money as a student than I did in my first job as a lawyer for the Securities Exchange Commission. But
Well, and like if you just look at
fun.
Cornell,
We just like to work. When I was in the
well,
Army,
listen, it's more than that. Like at Cornell, which is crazy, you were known as, I guess I don't know if they still have this, a triple red athlete, right? You had 3 degrees and football and track, and they don't really give that out much. So it's not like, it's usually like someone says, okay, I really only care about work. And they dive in, and yes, you're an entrepreneur. You started as an entrepreneur when you were 8 years old, which is wild, right? And obviously your brothers and everyone pushed each other, but you also have all these other things that you did that I don't know how you slept or how you even kept track of what you were doing, but obviously you're here and you figured it out. So you did that. You're at Cornell. Obviously, you love Cornell. We'll get a little bit into what Cornell is for you today later. But all right, so you get out, and like, what made you want to go get your law degree? Did you feel that was something that would help you in business, or you really weren't sure what you wanted to do yet? Obviously, you had all this experience more than anyone does at an early age. What was the thought process of that?
well, at Cornell, they had a system where you could double register. That means you can get an advanced degree and an undergraduate degree at the same time and save a year. So my senior year in the undergraduate, I double registered in the graduate business school. And then, so instead of taking 4 plus 2, you do 4 plus 1, so you get done 5. But then I met another student, and he also did that with the business school and the law school. So my fifth year, I double registered with the law school and the business school. So I was actually Cornell 7 years, but I got 9 years of work, three in law, two in masters, and four undergraduate.
Wow.
So,
I was thinking you did it because you wanted to keep making the money you were making, right? So you're like, how do I stay here?
well, I
Which,
was what they call a dorm counselor. By living in the dorms, you didn't have to pay for rent, but you had to just monitor the students that they behave themselves. There was one guy, and he was playing his guitar all the time. And I said, if you stop playing if you don't stop playing, I'm going to break your guitar. And he happened to be Harry Chapman, a very famous
oh my
artist.
God. How funny is that? That's I love that. I love that. So with all this going on and now you're doing the law thing, obviously you worked on the farm, you did all these entrepreneurial businesses. What made you go out and work at the SEC, the Pentagon? And I know you met I guess a colonel there that had an impact for you on the value of a network. But what pushed you in that direction?
Well, in law school and business school, my favorite courses was corporate law and tax law.
Okay.
And I was always interested in stock market, even as an undergraduate and graduate student. And I figured SEC is a good place to start. So, but as a ROT student, I had to spend 2 years in the army. So I had to leave I graduated law school, and then 6 months later, I had to leave. I had a commitment for my 2 year ROTC program, and I
Okay.
was fortunate to get situated at the Pentagon, and I was doing a lot of. I get to know a lot of high ranking individuals, and we would do what they call legal assistance. Somebody would come in, they would want a will, with tax questions. So we got to know a lot of people, and then a lot of my friends from Cornell, they wanted to know. Once you graduated your basic training, you had the option to go any place in the world, and I knew the people who assigned the people. So I put one of my friends wanted to go to Hawaii, so I had a lot of fun with the whole army system. And then my older brother, when he got married, he graduated Cornell. My father had this large egg operation. He met his wife, and he went to run the egg farm with my father. But my brother and I were married to two sisters, so I was married to the other sister. So my father-in-law, when I was in the army at the Pentagon, he asked me to join the food importing business. But I was trained to be a investment banker or get in the finance field. But when I was in the army, I had a lot of spare time on weekends, and so he would come to Washington. He says, "Look, I want to go to India. I want to take you to India." So I went there for a little while. I want to go to Brazil. I want to go. You know, so I was traveling all over the world while I was in the army, and he says, "Look, your brother joined your father's company. I want you to join our company." So finally, after 2 years, I said, "Okay, I'll join." So my wife said, "If I knew you were going to go into my father's business, I would have never married you because I thought you'd be a nice uptown lawyer, homebody. But now you're traveling." The one thing I also in the army when I wasn't traveling, and this I tell my kids, I had a part-time job at a tax service, general business service. I was working 60 hours a week part-time because I had my full time in the army. And 4 o'clock I'd go to this tax firm and I'd work Saturday and Sundays. I was able to put in 60 hours part time when I was there in Washington.
So let me ask you a question because it's wild. I mean, is it that you have to just always be busy? What drives you to want to do all this? Because I think work ethic is like a very important thing that, whenever I talk to young people, obviously you want to be passionate about what you're doing, but you got to put in the hours. You got to put in the work because, you fail a lot if you put more time in. So you figure out what you either don't want to be or what you're not supposed to do. What drove you?
I like to be busy. I like to be with people all the time. I think
Okay.
time. I think time is very important. One lesson my mother taught me: we had to walk a half a mile to the school bus, and she said, you always got to be on time. There's 60 children on the bus. If you're 1 minute late, that's like being an hour late. I don't even wear a watch, but I'm like time. Time is very important to me. So
Yeah, I'm the
one
same way. My father used to, it's funny because when I was younger, my father always had to be 15, 20 minutes early to everything. And I swore that when I was an adult, that's not what I would do. I'm worse. And I do believe that time and being late, is, it's sort of dissing who you're meeting with, that their time isn't as valuable as yours. So I'm a firm believer in being early and on time. So I get it. I totally get it. So what? You walked a half a mile to school? Uh,
because that's where we had to take a school bus.
it's amazing. I used to walk from school too, but mine actually probably was a half a mile. But I walked to school, so I didn't have to take a bus as well. So all right, the SEC, the Army. Now you're getting invited in to a business that I guess you had a little bit of fun traveling around, seeing the world, and now you're father-in-law. Obviously I'm so close to my father-in-law, but he was a doctor, and probably if he asked me to go into a business that he was in, I don't know if I would have done that. Why? I'm not sure, but what made you do it? Were you interested in the food business? Because it seems like you took a complete detour, but I guess because of the egg farm at the beginning of your life, maybe that's a reason.
Well, and also at Cornell, I studied. One of the courses I took was food distribution. I was always interested in
Oh,
food,
okay.
and I just thought the food business was very interesting. I originally, when I started, I reported to my father-in-law had a partner, and we our main business was Polish hams. So I spent a lot of time under him. I actually learned a lot from him, and we had different departments, and I would go from department to department. And what they taught me is we bought product from many countries all over the world, and I would spend a few weeks in the suppliers. Like I lived in Poland for 30 days. I spent a lot of time in Finland. I spent a lot of time in Nicaragua. So I sort of got a broad scope of different areas that we bought from, and then I got involved with the financial area. I worked as the treasurer, uh, and then eventually my father-in-law sort of retired, and then 50 years ago I took over completely.
And how
And
was it
fact,
working with? How was it working with him? Did you enjoy the? What was the rough spots? Like nothing's easy, right?
my father-in-law was kind of, I shouldn't say this, but he was a little difficult, working with him.
Okay.
And we would he would be out of the office a lot, and we would have like 8 executives, and I would have lunch with them, and I would have a point across. We want to do this, and they would agree with me. And then my father-in-law came back, and then he would poll everybody, and his opinion would be opposite of mine. They all agreed with my father-in-law. They left me. They changed their opinion, so I was
Right.
left hanging. So it was very difficult.
So how did you learn to deal with that, and how has that helped you now in your life?
Well, I just got to go with the flow. I do the best. Like
So that helped you with the flow.
One day I went to him. I said, this guy's a crook. So he said, the trouble is, you're not a good judge of character. So that night I wrote him a letter, and I handed him my resignation. I said to him, look, I could always learn the business, but the way I feel about people, that's something in me. I can't change that. And then he says, well, so you got to stay, blah, blah. Meanwhile, that guy, he committed murder. He had to go to prison. He committed
Oh
somebody.
my God. Listen, good. But I think that's a lesson because not only is it hard to talk to your boss at times, it's like when they're family members too, you have a whole different emotional thing going on. And the fact that you got yourself settled and you wrote a letter, but the thing that you were willing to let go of something that you probably even loved doing because you felt it wasn't going to work for you. I think that's a great lesson people should learn, that you still got to own yourself and own what you feel. And it doesn't always work out perfectly. Okay, so you're back. Now you're running it for 50 years, right? You take over in 1965.
Well, I joined in
Actually,
'65.
you joined in 65. You take over in 1980, right? Been climbing, the whole time. You had some hard moments, which we just saw. So, once you were in full gear and it was you running it, what do you feel was the hardest thing? Because there was less technology, there was less ability to communicate. You're an importer. You're importing from all over the world, right? It's not like you're just going to some warehouse in New Jersey that you're selling products that are here. What were the difficulties of? Because we know how big it is now, right? So what was the difficulties of taking it from, like you said, you were doing ham or whatever you were doing at the time, over the first 10 years of growing the business? What was your most difficult period?
One of the things I convinced my father-in-law in 1971 to go public. So
Okay.
we became on American Stock Exchange. But there, nobody understood what an importer is. Like one day it was price control, and the prices went up. It had nothing to do with what the business was doing. So in 1980, we decided to become a private company. We bought the
Okay.
stock back. So it was, as an importer, it was very difficult to let the public know exactly what we do. And so
Was it like a new thing? What? There was less goods being imported? Like, was that the challenge, and that you were willing to actually expand out bigger than most companies that were existing at that time, or no?
well, here's an example. The longshoremen refused to unload Polish hams because they believed in the John Birch Society. Anything from Eastern Europe is communist. You shouldn't deal with them. So
Okay.
we were able to somehow get to President Eisenhower at the time and said it's not the longshoremen to dictate the policy of U.S. government. And then we got that resolved. And I spent a lot of time in Washington. We had a lawyer, but we traded. We did. Certain countries had higher duty. It was impossible to buy goods from them. So, but by doing politics with certain people, we got that MFN done. And there was always problems in the import business. The government would accuse you of dumping. So we would have to prepare ourselves to win the case against anti-dumping. So, and
Got
then
it.
as the business grew, we had this Sandy, which we had, our warehouse was destroyed. We had $15 million worth of damage. We were completely destroyed for 2 weeks. And then later on, a few years ago, we got hacked. We had to pay. We they closed our computer system. They wanted $18 million. We don't even know who the people were. We find
Right.
we finally settled. There's
Well,
always a problem in the import business.
well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it all looks good on the outside, but what people tend to not realize is the grind. Every day there's another problem to solve. The more you scale, the more you have to manage. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so, going on that note, what I've learned about your company, because the problems are always there and they're still going to be there, and you get through them, but you can't do it on your own. And the one thing about the culture of Gellert Global is unbelievable. And I know Tom and Andy as well, and I just see how you all treat just people you don't know, and just also people that you work with and people you do deals with. So, like, how did that get instilled in you? Because it's easy when you have so many problems to not feel that or not want to grow, right? And the more people you have, the harder it is. What created this culture
Well,
that everyone knows and loves about your company?
growing up at Cornell, they had to graduate the College of Agriculture. You had to go on farm practice. You had to work on a farm for summer. So every year we had maybe 10 students from foreign countries, and we got to know their culture, what they're like, and the way my parents treated these foreign students. There was one boy. I asked him what he does. He says, "Well, my father works in a rubber field, rubber." And he worked like we did. We got up at 5 in the morning, worked till 9 o'clock at night. At the end of summer, I find this young guy. His family owns Lee Rubber, one of the largest rubber companies in the world. But he didn't want to say what he was doing, and he got together culture. And his example, John. My grandkids, Andy's son, when we had the snowstorm 2 days ago, they walked to work. Nobody told them to walk. Their offices were closed. One 26, the other 20, or 25, 20. They walked to work. Something you're just born with. That's all I can say.
Well, it is, but at the end of the day, culture and gratitude and being grateful and passing that on to people that you work with every day and the
We,
people that
we
you do
try
stuff
we
with.
try to run this as a family business. When bankers or people come to visit us, we'll give them a tour of the warehouse, and they're impressed the fact that we say hello to all the employees. We know who their names. Andy and Tom and my daughter Amy the same way. We try to
Yeah,
treat
all
the
three of
company
them.
as
I mean, you got a great fan. I mean, it's instilled within the DNA of all the Gellerts, and everyone says it. It's not, I hear it all the time. All right, so I thought something was interesting. I guess in the '70s, you're one of the first American businessmen to be invited to trade with China, like long, long time ago. I guess it was during almost the Cold War. Most people would say that could be a little, that's insane, right? Like being the first one and, not being afraid. Like, what makes you not afraid? Because I know you and I know how you interact. I know the risks you take. It's almost like you always feel everything's going to work out. That Sandy example you brought up, it was brutal, but you just always seem to get through it. First of all, how interesting was that doing that at that time, and what made you not fear doing it?
well. It's kind of interesting. I was there in the early stage. I went to buy a pair of shoes, and my wife took a photograph. And that night, they knocked on the door, and they asked my wife to take her film out because she took a picture of a Chinese person in a subservient position because he was bending down putting shoes on. And
Yeah,
and one day, one person was the, the person you negotiated with, and the other person was a translator. Next day, the translator was the person you negotiated with, and you were uh, you were complete. They switched roles, so it was very strange to to be over there. But we at that time they didn't have too much to sell, but we bought frozen rabbits and we sold
Okay.
them. In some parts of the United States, they like Baltimore, they like that rabbit meat. So we started
Oh
doing some
yeah,
business
absolutely.
then.
So that's, I mean, like it just seems like you have no fear. Even when you're 8 years old and 12 years old, getting on a bus by yourself, I guess that was instilled with you when you were young. And talking about fear on a personal note, you were diagnosed and treated with B cell lymphoma, way back. My mother went through a bout as well. And I say this all the time, the minute she knew she had it, she's like, this, I'm beating this. This is not, now it's my will to fight. How did you get through that? Because everyone does it differently, and like watching my mother go through it gave me every bit of courage that I have today, because I had to watch it, and it wasn't good. Like, she wasn't given a good chance. How did you go through it? You
Well,
know,
when it helped a lot, I had very good care to the president of Cornell. He sent me to Cornell, the hospital, and I had the top guy to treat me, and they gave me an experimental drug, which was sort of which made chemo less effective. So I was diagnosed in July, and in December I was skiing already. I had the chemo right away, and I was able to rebound real quick. So
yeah, but you're saying it like it's nothing. Uh, when you went through it, was it like, this is, I'm just getting through it, or you went on an experimental drug that you never even know it would work? So where do you get that mindset? Like, what happens when something like that happens to you? How do you take a step back? A lot of people are going to be listening to this. What advice would you give people when something goes wrong? How do you look at the world, and how do you look at the challenge?
well, the question is just to try harder and try to push yourself. And you know, I know the chemo would knock you out, but I try to, still be very active and don't let it.
And be positive. It sounds like you just want to be positive. It's amazing. Uh, all right. Well, listen, you're here and you have more energy than most people I know, including me. You still get up at 4:45 in the morning. You're still working out, tennis every afternoon. I come up and have dinner with you at your beautiful residence. I always enjoy that. We got to do that again soon. But, what I like to discuss is, when you said it's a family business, not everyone says that, but that doesn't mean it's reality. And I know a lot of them that say it, that people that, are there don't really feel that. I know they feel that with you. But when it comes to family businesses, you went into one, right? You're 50 years later. Now you have the second generation. You got your Tom, Andy, and Amy. Most family businesses, and I know this would never happen to you. I happen to know everyone involved, so it's easier for me to understand this as a host of a podcast talking to a guest. But what do you feel is the most important thing moving forward, so that this is like 4, 5, and 6 generations? I mean, because your company is dominant. You not only do the food importing, you own 50, 65 guys. You own other restaurant businesses. What makes something like this thrive and survive and go forward for generations? What's the lesson everyone should learn? I know so many people with family businesses that, like, that's what they want to learn. They want to know.
Well, you can't be jealous of each other. You got to root for everyone. For example, when one of our children or grandchildren uh, graduated Cornell, we've had 24 family members go to Cornell. We have last year when Amy's daughter graduated. We had 45 members go up to Ithaca for the graduation. So we sort of support. We try to, when vacations with our family, we take a week, we go with the whole family. It's not just my family, too. It's the same. We treat my three brothers the same way. We're all very close. One of my brothers, Bob, works in the company. His son now has a leading role, Joshua. So it's as I said, my older brother married my wife's sister. My nephew and my three children own Five Guys. Now we have 150 of them, Five Guys.
Oh, you
So
do? Wow.
we just purchased 37 more. But it's just doing the family together. That's what's really very important to us.
Well, I think what you also are not mentioning, and I'm going to help you mention it, and it goes in a lot of different ways, is I've never seen more loyal people than your family. I may see people as loyal, but never more loyal. And you
But
just can feel it when you're around you. All right. So one thing I just know about your family, which is like very hard to teach, that I not only sense it with your family, but I sense it with even the people that work at your company when I engage with them, all different levels, is this loyalty you have for your customers, your friends, your family. And like, why is that so important to you? And how did you pass that along so deeply to your family? Because, like, it doesn't stop with you. And I know how loyal you are. You're one of the most loyal friends anyone can have. How did that happen?
well, I think it's basically I saw the way my parents treated the workers on the farm. One boy needed a car. We gave him a car. Then eventually he grew up to have the largest disposal company in the area. If employee needs money, we lend money to employees. We have get to know their families. It's just a question of it's built up over a number of years. When we do business overseas, the foreigners, their children stay with us. Uh, it's something that we treat
I guess you
everybody.
just, I guess you got it when you're growing up. I mean, like, listen, I feel the same way, but I've never seen the level of loyalty from a family, like everyone in the family, like every generation of the family has it. So whatever you and your wife did just by having everyone around and learning from your parents, it's come through everyone's DNA. So, and that to me is all that matters, right? Like I always say, like, who do I want in my foxhole? Like I have a partner, that he's the one I want in my foxhole. Like we're both feel the same way about each other. And, there's people that I always say they'll run in front of a truck for you if they had to. And, there's only so many people your ecosystem that you feel that about. And you have that, which is amazing. So, all right, here we go. It's moving on. What's next? You're at where you are. You have all these people now adding value. All together as an amazing family business should. Where do you see it going in the future with just how the world's changing?
Well, I have nine grandchildren. I'm hoping that at least some of them will join the business. And people all the time are interested in buying the company, but I hope it's not my decision. Now it's the next generation. I hope we continue uh, to expand our business and not sell the business and give an opportunity for more family members to join the business. Nowadays, we made quite a few acquisitions, and it's some very good ones. And what happens a lot of these acquisitions, a man starts a business, he grows the business, and then his sons and daughters don't want to join the business, so that gives us an opportunity for us to buy them, and most of them stay on. They still want to work. It's just that they know that there's an end game for them. So at least in the food
I love
business,
it.
real estate and finance, it's a lot glamorous for the next generation.
So George, you're Mr. Food. We know foodie. Every restaurant, when I need a restaurant, I call you. Andy, I love it. I don't ever have to go to ChatGPT or any of these LLMs to find the answer. But what's so interesting about you is, and again, if you just look at your career, like not having fear of, or not worry, not scared to learn, not scared to try other things new. You have all these other things outside what you do with the food, which is real estate, and so talk to us a little bit about how you got into that, because it's not small, it's large, and what makes you feel you can be doing that while you have so much focus on your business. Like what allows you to do that?
Well, it's the whole story comes down to making best use of your time. And while I was at Atlanta, one of our customers was a supermarket in Puerto Rico, Pueblo Supermarket, and the owner said to me, "You should join YPO." And I didn't ever heard what YPO was, and so I joined, and from there, I met people in addition to the food world, in all sorts of businesses. So I met a young person my age, 50 years ago, David Burley, and he got me involved in real estate, and
Okay.
did quite a few ventures with David. But I still maintain the food business as this was sort of a side business. And then
Yep.
my accountant said, he saw my tax return, saw I have so many real estate deals. He said, "Well, my nephew is with this law firm, and there's a young guy who's just starting. You should meet him." And that's when I met Charlie Kushner, and that
Oh,
was 42 years ago. Through I started out with David Burley, but all the deals my accountant saw the deals I had with him, so he introduced me to his nephew. And Charlie and I have had a 42-year relationship, and that's been great. And through YPO, I met another friend, Alan Bernstein. He was chairman of Morton's, and he had Le Peep, a lot of food. And the family farm that my older brother ran, he turned it over to his son, and that business became more difficult. So through Bernstein, we got started with Cinnabon, and then so and then another. I'm just using an example. And Andy, my son, he saw the networking I was getting from YPO. He joined, and he found another of his friends at YPO that heard of this hamburger chain that just started, Five Guys. So we wound up we kept on, my nephew, my three kids, a separate corporation, and now we have 155 guys. But it was all based on the relationship we had with YPO and the people we knew, and the same thing where at business school I met a young gentleman, a schoolmate, and he had a brokerage firm, money management. So I've been dealing with him for 50 years, and my brother Bob was started out on Wall Street, and he introduced me to one of his associates. So I think you get a lot out of business where you do business with people you like, so it's not just a business relationship. You have to really John, I could say this is like my son has a relationship with you. It's not just doing business with,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it
It's
was
the whole.
relationship first, actually. I
So
agree with you. But you know what? You're very unique because everyone has relationships, but you know, you tend to have relationships that are 50 years plus that don't go away. I mean, with a world and like with everything that changes in your life all the time, again, it's back to the loyalty, the friendship, the caring that and because of that, people trust you and you trust them, and you don't need a lot of people. You just need the right ones. And obviously, you seem to find them, and you're amazing. So that's how I feel. So I'm so glad, you know, all these lessons, hopefully, people are going to learn that, it's never what it looks from the outside looking in or the inside looking out. And first of all, you have to like what you do. And it just, I know how much you like the food business. I also know how much you like real estate and in finance. So you were able to go out and get two of your passions and do it with your family and your friends. So you got it. You got the good model. You got the perfect model. So again, appreciate all your wisdom.
pleasure.
Listen, you got one thing we all know: you have to eat, and it's very staple part of like being alive, right? So, and with AI and everything changing, maybe they'll think differently as time goes on and create new businesses using AI, but on something that everyone needs and makes everyone healthy and live long. So to end this, because I could go for another 3 hours, but that would be too long of a podcast for me and you. If you could give one like piece of advice to someone young that's graduating college now or the first year in business, knowing that you spent 60 years getting to where you are today, and it was ups and downs and sideways and all different ways. What would you tell them today, knowing like the environment that we're in and all the change everybody's going through? What would you tell them?
Well, I would say you have to work from the bottom. Like I started out in the mailroom. I was foreign visitors came in. I went to the airport to pick them up. Amy, Tommy, and Andy, they all worked in the warehouse. Don't be afraid to start from the bottom. you know, uh, Sometimes we get these graduates, uh, students in there as an intern, but they really they don't want to make a photostat machine. They don't want to photocopy. Everybody wants to start from the top. You have to really start from the bottom. Not if, Don't be afraid of hard work and ask a lot of questions. And the thing about questions, people are busy during the day. They don't want to be teaching you as this young student during the work hours. If you want to really get to know them and know the business, talk to them after hours. Don't be afraid to give your life to your job. It's not a 9 to 5. I'm not saying you have to work later, but you know, associate with them, learn with them, and
I
let
totally agree. It's funny you say that because I always said, like, when COVID hit and this whole, like, everyone was just working remotely and no one was coming to the office, which is completely gone the other way, which I knew it would to a point. I mean, it still has the flexibility of all the flexible things people need to do. And I agree with that too. But I just felt like if you're not around people to hear the little things that are just happening around you, you just miss out on so much. I all the things that I learned that were the most important were always these things that like I wasn't even supposed to hear them, right? Like I just happened to be there, or I asked a question that came up that I would have never asked if I wasn't around. So I agree with you, and I always say to younger people too, like whatever you do now is not your last final decision in your life. and just get in there and see if you like it. I always say, like, finding out what you don't want to do is almost as important as finding out what you want to do, right? Because you don't really know till you try. You didn't know you were going to be in the food business. Like you had no idea. You just went with the flow, like you said, which I love, and you took chances that you didn't know if they were going to work. So thank you so much for being on this, and I appreciate all your wisdom.
My pleasure.
I want to thank George Gellert for his time today, and I really mean that. This is a man who's been building a company for 60 years, and he didn't have to come sit down with me and share this with any of us. But I think what stays with me most is how quietly he did it. No headlines, no victory laps, just decades of showing up, doing the work, and taking care of people around him, which I know he does it for me, he does it for everyone he knows. If you're listening to this and you're in a 2-year, a 10-year, or even a 20-year something, and it feels like nothing is happening, I hope this conversation reminds you that things that are worth building don't announce themselves. They just keep compounding. Thank you for listening.